I think it is clear to believe in the power of ideas.
Fresh thinking to the Manhattan Institute.
Good morning. Good morning, and thank you for coming to our conference this morning entitled Market Meltdown, New York's Financial Crisis. I'm Howard Husick, Vice President of the Manhattan Institute. As the national and world economies struggle to cope with the current financial crisis, New York faces its own especially daunting challenges. We are buffeted not only by the immediate effects of a credit crunch, but by the long-term consequences of recent events on our most important local industry, financial services. How did things go wrong, and are current public policies likely to put things right? What will the effects, both fiscal and political, be on city and state government? Finally, can New Yorkers reinvent our economy yet again? These broadly are the questions which our distinguished speakers this morning will consider. We at the Manhattan Institute are privileged to convene this discussion at a critical moment in New York City's history. To start things off, I turn to the moderator of the first of our three panels, the former publisher and current columnist of the Wall Street Journal, Gordon Krovitz.
Good morning, everyone. There are a lot of ways to describe the current unpleasantness. The conference organizers have called it the market meltdown. I think it could also be called the panic of 2008, and it could also be called the biggest intervention by government in markets in the lifetime of almost everyone in this room. We're very fortunate to have with us two great panelists who can address the opening question of how we got here. In the process, we might also learn some things about how to get out of where we are, and in the process, hopefully, cause the least amount of damage. Amity Shlaes is a senior fellow in economic history at the Council on Foreign Relations. Bloomberg carries her syndicated column. You'll recognize her byline from the Financial Times and from the Wall Street Journal. Amity has written two national bestsellers, The Greedy Hand about taxation and The Forgotten Man. National Review called The Forgotten Man the finest history of the Great Depression ever written. There are more than 130,000 copies in print, and given the market meltdown, it's back on the New York Times bestseller list. David Malpass is president of Encima Global. My Spanish is a little bit rusty, but I think that means on top of the world, David, which is where we always want you to be. This is an economic research and consulting firm. He's a former chief economist of Bear Stearns. He also served in the Treasury Department and the State Department from 1984 to 1993 in a variety of roles, but including while at Treasury and working on the S&L bailout. I'm going to ask each of our panelists to speak on the topic. We'll then have a discussion among us, but we want to be sure to reserve time for your questions, which we will do, so please keep them in mind. Amity, I'd ask you to start. Thank you.
Good morning. Oh, there we go. Okay. I want to first read to you a headline from October 22. Stocks slump again. From today, but today in 1929. And I wanted also to read you the first paragraph of this story because it sounds so much like the moralizing newspapers we have today. Amid scenes of wild confusion and drastically lower prices, the stock market continued to pay the piper for its long dance of advancing and inflated prices. Organized support for pivotal stocks did not develop. So where we are in terms of history is before the Black Days, Black Tuesday, Black Thursday. At the end of October, we're about to celebrate those anniversaries. What I'm going to talk to you very briefly about this morning with this mini PowerPoint is not the crash of 29, but what followed, because 29 crash did not have to be followed by a decade plus of depression, just as our crash does not have to be. there were 5 sins that were committed by policymakers subsequent to the crash that made the Depression great in magnitude.